If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Hello, and welcome to Long Shots Golf Betting Podcast here on the VSiN Podcast Network. Matt Brown, Kelley Bydlon coming to you here as we get ready to talk the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Kelley Bydlon, this is elevated event, so we are going to have 80 golfers. There's going to be no cut. So one thing that we always say with these no cut events, just remember the payouts are not going to be what they typically are. And also, if you're playing placement markets and head-to-heads and stuff like that, just be aware that you can get run down in situations where you would not have been able to be run down before. One of the advantages that we do have when we play these head-to-heads, and I say advantages, certainly I guess it could go the other way too, but there's a cut. And if your guy makes the cut and the other guy doesn't make the cut, you've already won, right? You've won halfway through the tournament as to where, everybody guaranteed 4 rounds here in this one.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more dicey. That's a good point. While we're going through PSAs, the first round leader markets as well. This will be split up by course, most likely at your sports book. If you can find a book that offers everything for first round leader, great, go attack it. But just be very aware when we are playing in these tournaments where these guys will be playing on different golf courses for round one. They usually post multiple first round leader markets. So yeah, all the PSAs of just little different tournaments that we get involved in.
Guys, stick around. We will have at least 14 different bets that have made our accounts that we will talk about. And maybe we'll talk ourselves into another couple other bets over the course of the podcast here. But as we mentioned, this is, in fact, the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. This is the West Coast swing of everything that's going on right now. It is a 2-course Pro-Am style event. They will go between Pebble and Spyglass on the first 2 days. Then the amateurs are going to take off, and then they will play the final 2 rounds on the Pebble Beach course. So 3 total rounds on Pebble, 1 over on Spyglass. And again, the amateurs will stop after the first 2 rounds as well. If we look at this elevated event, $20 million per purse, 80 players, and with that comes, some guys that maybe you're getting in aren't in the greatest of form, but, listen, it is guaranteed 4 rounds, so we'll have to take that into account whenever we really get going out of this. 27 of the top 30 players in the world are going to be here in Kelley Bydlon. We have the return of one Scotty Scheffler, the return of one Jordan Spieth to go along with a bunch of the other household names that are in the field.
Yeah. One of those names is bigger than others for sure. But I shouldn't say that. I guess I'm excited, maybe especially this week, to see what Jordan Spieth could possibly have coming back from injury. It'd be nice to see Spieth get his game back together. I know I'm one of his constant haters. It feels like I just hate how much he talks to the camera and talks on course. But Spieth is good. Good Spieth is good for golf, and it would be nice if he got back in the mix.
Well, if you remember, he was playing pretty well before this injury. Like, it was to the point where we were kind of going, "Oh, is Jordan back?" And then the injury came about, and then he just kind of fell off a cliff again. So we'll see what he looks like returning from injury. One injury that will not be returning from is Xander Schauffele. He is not in the field with this one, so he still battling with his injury. We do have a bunch of the former winners in the field as well. Last year's weather-shortened winner in Wyndham Clark, Justin Rose, Tom Hoge, Nick Taylor. Of course, Jordan Spieth also won this event as well. So just to kind of keep you up to date on those guys. And then Pebble Beach, Kelley, as you were kind of doing your research here with this, I mean, the stuff that really stood out to me about just Pebble Beach in general, yes, weather can take over like we saw last year. That said, forecast does not look as of right now like it's going to be bad weather. So I think we at least have to prep for this to be a pretty clean tournament and be ready to pivot if it does change on us there.
This
small
looks really
greens.
calm, like really calm, Matt. I mean, it is the number one defense of this course. And yes, I was a little shocked to pull this up and be like, oh, this is, I mean, at least for the first 2 rounds, as of right now, on Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. It looks very, very quiet here on Thursday and Friday. So, we'll see.
Which should make this course pretty scoreable. I mean, it should make it scoreable. It is a short course. And while the greens are small, if you're not having to battle the wind, we'll still be able to hit these things. A lot of emphasis on wedge play, scrambling, kind of good drive percentage, things like that. Going to be less than driver on a lot of these holes over on Pebble Beach as well. Pretty tough putting conditions would be another defense here to this one. Over on Spyglass, a little bit longer. It is tree lined. There's some elevation changes and things like that. A little bit tougher off the tee, but not super, super difficult here. And the greens, while small, are at least a little bit bigger than you get over at Pebble. Average about 5,000 square feet to where you get 3,500 square feet over there over on Pebble. Any other kind of course factors that you looked at here? Any of the stuff that really stood out about the courses themselves?
I mean, mainly just focusing in on Pebble too. I think as we talk about this and we are dealing with multiple courses, I'm mainly just running models based off Pebble. I mean, if these guys are going to play three of their 4 rounds on there, so I really not paying as much attention to Spyglass. And this is another one of those where they're pretty comparable stats wise anyways of what you need from one to the other. So I'm not overly concerned about that, but it's always something to keep in mind. Short, I don't know what you did off the tee wise, but it's, these are pretty wide fairways, 41 yards on average. You don't really have to be extremely accurate here. Length is kind of just dampened anyways because of there's a lot of just kind of layup spots and spots these guys have to hit to where distance isn't really helping you out nearly as much here with how short of a course it is. And I think the greens and around the green game is fascinating here. I feel like I look more into it almost every year we go to break down this tournament. Like I think you put it perfect of when you're on the greens, just some bumpier POA that just a little trickier to putt, especially when you get, like I broke down kind of 5 to 10 feet, 10 to 15 feet, those ranges pretty severely because that is really where we've seen a lot of the winners come from in the past. Those guys that are able to make those mid-range to a little bit longer putts because it is a course it is tough to make those on. And then around the green's fascinating here because of how small the greens are. You're gonna have to play more from off the green than you normally would. You've got a lot of bunkers here, both in the fairway and around the green areas that you're going to have to contend with. But it's like overall difficulty, Matt, not all that difficult, from a tour average perspective, kind of on any of it. So it's one of those rare events, I think, where you're going to have to play more around the green. But with it being gettable, I think those guys that are elite around the green players have a chance to, chip in from off the green, right? To put one really close to set themselves up with. I think you get those opportunities here at Pebble that we don't see at many other tournaments.
Yeah, it's a course, and we'll talk about the stats that mattered to us and why they mattered to us, but certainly something where, your short game, your around the green game, your scrambling game is going to play, certainly going to play a role in all of this. Like we said, weather, typically something we're really worried about here. Everything that I've seen does not look like that. So again, I'm not looking at splits as far as, AM, PM, things like that. Kelley, you did mention we're doing this on Tuesday afternoon. Things can change for sure, but I think it's worth noting where, in the past we have done kind of, all right, let's look at these AM, PM splits. Let's see who gets the, air quote, good end of the weather. That did not factor in for me this week.
Mm-hmm. No, me neither at all. And it's one of the first things I put up. Like you said, we go and talk Pebble, go talk any of these coastal courses. It's one of the first things I do look at, just because if it might be easy to start crossing off names, right? It's really more from that perspective for me. The one weather note I actually wrote down is just that there was a frost warning in effect this morning. So some of the guys who went out there to play practice rounds, they got delayed a little bit on their practice rounds because they couldn't get out on the course. So maybe that's a factor, but I don't really expect it once we get into tournament play. But honestly, I was expecting to write down different wind stuff for different days, and that really is not a factor. It looks like this weekend, but plenty of time.
Yeah, I got pretty close given the conditions to also, looking at guys that play really well in I'm not going to say easy scoring conditions, but at least easier scoring conditions, because I think that, given the length of Pebble and how short it is, and yeah, I understand that means less than driver and stuff like that for a lot of these dudes, but less than driver for a lot of these guys is every bit past your driver that, if you play golf outside at home and and things like that. So I didn't get there with that. That's not to say I might not run another couple models between now and then if this weather forecast holds, and maybe put in like optimal scoring conditions and see if that changes anything along the way. But I just wanted to at least leave that disclaimer out there that I didn't put in any type of scoring conditions in the model, but I might.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't either, but yes, I think this is a tournament. You always got to be aware of it. Stuff could change. So yes, I think if you're doing stuff like we are at home, leave yourself an opportunity to open that back up and refactor some things. One of the things I wanted to hit on with you is just, I'll tell you, this is one of those tournaments where I think early in the year, I draw off of pull from tournament history a little bit more than I'll do in the middle of the season when we're really going more off recent form data. Man, I'll tell you though, man, there were not a lot of guys that aligned for me of, hey, this guy is really good. Recent form stuff that I'm looking at. Has played a couple tournaments already this year. I'm confident in what he's doing with his game, and he's played well here in the past. There was not many of those crossing over for me. So I really have, a lot of my guys in the card do not have a ton of experience or a ton of great experience here at Pebble Beach. And I did feel a little bit more comfortable with that, with the weather not looking like it was going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring it up with you because I do think that is something I tend to focus on a little bit more at the beginning of a season. But I can't play guys that might have great course history somewhere if they are playing like crap right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. There is a little bit of stickiness to the course history here. That said, I'm just not a big course history dude. And I know that, I know some courses just fit guys' eyes better than others and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I totally get that. But I just never really had a ton of success factoring in course history into stuff because I think it ends up outweighing. So, people can run hot, right? People can run hot or cold at a place. And I don't want to get skewed just off of, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a limited sample size for a lot of the golfers in the field if you're doing course history. There's only so many rounds that some of these dudes can possibly have played, right, at these courses. And so what ends up happening is you get these super small sample sizes. It kind of skews the outcome. Some of these dudes who have never played it, then they fall in your model and all the different stuff like that. And so I just try not to. But that's just me.
Here's maybe my perfect example that I'm bringing up this week. This is one Patrick Kelley. In 4 of the past 5 years here, he's finished T11 or better. He has a T11, a T4, a T3, and a T11. But you know what concerns me, Matt, when I look at 2 tournaments so far this year and we're red in approach. And Patrick Kelley has a very well-rounded game, obviously, to see he's gaining putting, he's gaining around the green, gaining off the tee is great. Off the tee is a little mitigated at a course like this. And if you're struggling with your irons to start the season, I don't really know that I want to focus on a guy on a second shot golf course like this, even if he has great course history. And this is, it's early in the year, like you said, with limited data from course history. This is limited data, obviously, that I'm pulling from 2 starts this year at the American Express and the Century. But I think this was one of those tournaments I ran into that a little bit more where I'm like, I'm not playing a guy like that if he can't hit his approach shots well right now.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. If we look over the odds board with all the big guys showing up, return of Scotty Scheffler, he is your overwhelming favorite here in this tournament. Then we get to Rory McIlroy, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Ludwig Oberg. Patrick Cantlay, again, despite that recent form stuff, is still up there. Hideki Matsuyama, Sung J M, Tommy Fleetwood, Sam Burns, Jason Day, Keegan Bradley, Wyndham Clark. And then once you get into kind of the Victor Hovland, Corey Connors, Taylor Pendrith area, you're starting to get into that 55 to 60-ish to 1. With those guys, Will Zalatoris, who ended up pulling out last week, I'm pretty sure that was just because he knew he was going to be back there in a couple of other weeks. He is on the board here, about 55 to 1. Max Grazerman, Russell Henley, Matt McNeely, Tony Finau, way, way, way down. And a lot of that is recent form too, Kelley. I mean, we're not used to seeing Finau, as far down the board as he is, but he has been struggling, maybe dealing with an injury himself. Shane Lowry, Sepp Straka, and then Tom Kim. So there's some very interesting names that do have some bigger numbers attached to them than we normally see. But a lot of that could be not only recent form, maybe dealing with some injury type things. And maybe a lot of that just has to do with the win equity for some of these dudes too.
Yeah, I think you're right. And look, we're like we've been talking about, we're drawing off of limited data to start the season. We've seen bombs win here. There is no reason. I mean, Wyndham Clark a year ago, I know we didn't even complete the tournament, but 70-1, Wes was on him, hit that, got that home with Wyndham Clark. Like, this is, guys can do that. So I don't. If you told me you felt great about Tony Finau this week for whatever reason, I can tell you that he hasn't looked great to start the season, but it's only in a couple tournaments, and you're getting a longer number on a guy who's played pretty well over the past couple years of his career. So him specifically, I think I'd still be concerned with some of the injury stuff, but we will caution everybody we feel like we should caution on, but we're still so early in the season. I think any of these guys, so many of these guys could win, and it would not be a shocker at all.
Yeah. So as far as the model goes, disclaimer, as we say all the time, guys, that we don't code. We are using the skeleton of some very smart guys out there in the industry. I run models on 3 different sites. I think Kelley does 2 different sites. And so we kind of like try to figure out where there's crossover and where there's value for all of that. No shocker, I think, if I told you who was at the top of all these models. Obviously the approach is huge here. It is a second shot golf course. If we're talking about less than driver, we're not really worried about anything outside of where's that second shot going and what are they going to be able to do with it. So approach number pretty heavily weighed for me. We talked about the around the green stuff. They are super small greens, and so even good shots might not end up on the green as well. And so with that being the case, did look around the green, did look at scrambling to see which dudes are going to be able to handle that. Birdie or better percentage, need, and maybe some opportunities gained as well for some guys that are able. Again, like I said, I think that this is going to be pretty good scoring conditions. And if that's the case, then I want to see dudes that take advantage of their birdie opportunities and getting that in there. So I did birdie or better, and I also did opportunities gained. And this is something that might not be in everyone's models out there, but it's going to find its way into mine, given the conditions I think we're going to get. Good drive percentage for me. And then outside of that, just a sprinkle, Kelley, on kind of some bogey avoidance stuff. Did a little bit of strokes gained on short courses, just more of as a tiebreaker type deal to see who handles those well. And then a tiny bit of, where was it? Oh yeah, a tiny bit of total driving, and I mean tiny bit, but it was just more of a, hey, Spyglass is more, at least a little bit more traditional. There is going to be a little bit more driver over there on that course than whatever else. So it's still with total driving, blending the length with accuracy. So put that into the model as well to see what it spit out. What did you throw in? Yeah,
you pretty much hit on everything. I guess the biggest difference is, right, for me at a course like this, it is de-emphasizing a lot of things off the tee. I do think that you are still, it's wide fairways, but accuracy is still important here. The other thing to keep in mind, it is the Pro-Am those first couple days, so you're not going to have crazy rough or anything like that too. So even if these guys are spraying it a little wide, they should be okay. But we've still seen the accuracy play. I mean, being in the fairway is still better, and being where you want in the fairway is still better than being in the rough. So good drives gained, a little accuracy stats off the tee, but really overall, of how much I look off the tee stats, pretty de-emphasized this week compared to other weeks. And then, heavy on approach, you kind of nailed everything. Approach, really proximity buckets of the wedges. So anything from, I scaled from 50 to 125 yards is what I really looked at. Focused in heavily on those, actually. Opportunities gained, you brought it up. I love that stat for multiple reasons. I think look, it's an approach shot that's putting you within 15 feet with a chance to birdie, right? But I think at courses like this, where you're dealing with small greens, I think a stat like greens in regulation can be misleading for when you're going into a course like this, because the greens are going to be smaller. Well, I don't care what guys are doing how they're doing on hitting greens that are almost twice the size of this. I need to know guys are putting it close to the pin, and that's even more important in a course like this, especially with the scoring conditions. So I love that stat. I think it's really important in a week like this. But yeah, opportunities gained, birdie or better, like you said. And then, around the green scrambling, we talked about that already, of definitely emphasizing that more this week than I typically do. So definitely want to bring that up. And then a kind of mixture of putting stats that, that you and I don't think you or I usually factor as much. Definitely not me. I don't want to speak for you, but usually don't nearly as much as I did this week. Not that I went crazy, because it's a little bit of a blend for me. It's 3-putt avoidance. I think that's important to look at when you're looking at, especially again, on small greens. If you're 3-putting on small greens, it's like 4-putting on big greens. greens, right? That's a major problem. So 3-putt avoidance, I think, is great whenever you're looking at smaller greens. And then I did a little bit of, putting on POA, because that's what we're going to be dealing with this week, and kind of 5 to 10 and 10 to 15, like I brought up earlier. Just kind of wanted to look at a couple different lengths where guys were coming at from putting wise. Then you said it already, short courses definitely factored in as well.
Guys, remember, everything we do on this podcast absolutely free. So if you are listening over on your podcast of choice, if you want to subscribe, rate, review, do appreciate that. And if you're over on YouTube, hello, this is what we look like, and appreciate a subscription. Hitting that subscribe button as well, maybe a thumbs up. Let us know in the comment section how you are going to be playing this tournament. Kelley, for me, to no one's surprise, shocker, number 1 overall, Scotty Scheffler. I mean, he's going to be the number 1 guy basically in every single model that you run, unless you run like super. Well, I ran a super short Form 1, and obviously he was, he's been out for a little bit, so whatever. But outside of that, he's the number 1 golfer. But I mean, as I started to build my card, and like we said, guys, we got you, over a dozen bets in the account. One name that kept popping up for me that I don't know what his win equity is, so I ended up not doing it from an outright standpoint. But Adam Scott kept popping up in the model. Adam Scott was like getting really pummeled in the model for me. And so to the point of one of the models I ran, he was first actually overall ahead of Scotty, which is the weirdest thing. So
that would be mine right there if you're watching at home. And Adam Scott comes in at number 3, only behind a Scotty Scheffler and a Colin Morikawa.
Yeah. So I played a top 20 on Adam Scott. I might add a 10 as well. I might even add a 5 just to kind of see if I can capitalize on a kind of a 99th percentile outcome here for him. But in a limited field, there's only 80 guys in this thing. I think that it's going to him going into this thing knowing he gets 4 rounds no matter what, a guy that's been a long time grinder and all that. And you said it. I mean, he popped in your model too, because a lot of the stuff that we're trying to find in a golfer this week has found its way to Adam Scott. Now, I don't know his win equity is, which is why I don't really like him outright, but did play him in the top 20 market.
I got close. I don't know how we got to this route first, but I'm very glad you brought up Adam Scott, because he was one of the guys I spent some of the most time on. Like you said, he rated out very highly for me. I actually feel like we've brought him up a few times. I feel like you bet him semi-recently. I've bet him a few times here going back to like end of last summer. He had a nice streak kind of in the middle, late last summer where he was playing some really good golf, and it's kind of kept it up. And I think it's like last 36 rounds, 19th on approach in the field, 25th around the greens, 3rd in par 5 scoring. I do think I did factor in par 5 scoring. I don't think I said that one earlier, but you got 4 par 5s. You got to score on them this week. They're the scoreable holes on this course. Some of the par 4s are very tough. So some of the par 5s you got to take advantage of. 3rd in par 5 scoring, 7th in POA putting in the last 36 rounds here. So, looking kind of great in all those wedge buckets, proximity buckets I was looking at. So I did not end up betting it outright. I as well bet a top 20 on him. I bet it pretty heavily. I think that's where I'm going to stop, Matt, because I had the same questions you did. It was, what's the win equity? Can I really trust him to get this home? Based on the odds, I wouldn't hate it if you added one. We've kind of seen some of these longer shots win. If he gets a hot putter and some wind comes into play or whatever, he could be very live. I wouldn't hate it at all. I got very close to pulling the trigger on it. I did not, though, and it was top 20 for me as well.
2 other placement markets for me. JJ Spawn inside. I did a top 20 on him. Can't pull the trigger on him and outright either, even though he was just lighting up the model too, mainly because his around the green game is so up and down and is really, really volatile. He lost around the green in 3 of his last 4 tournaments as well, which doesn't make me feel great with all that. Though he did at the Farmers last week get post a green number there in around the green. But this is a guy that is, if you look comparatively to where he is in the model for me, Kelley, to his odds, I mean, he is 16th in one of mine. He is 12th in another. And then if I did like the shorter like kind of the closer one, he actually moves up a little bit higher. So again, not willing to pull the outright on him, but I think that he can grind enough here. And even with the around the green woes, with how good he's been on approach, maybe he doesn't have to utilize that as much. And so even though the deficiency is there, maybe he can get me a top 20.
Yeah, so what I've bet him once or twice already this year, he's kind of been up there almost every week when I'm looking at stuff. I think my takeaway from kind of even just looking at kind of with these finishes up on the screen right now, it's I think I trust him a little bit more at some weaker field events, and I think that's where I'm going to be playing with him a little bit more here. But based off the numbers you're looking at, betting odds, yes, he checks out. He would make sense for me as well. Again, I've already bet him once or twice this year.
You said you had another couple of placement markets as well.
I did. I have top 20 on Adam Scott. So no outright on Adam Scott, just the top 20 on him. The other guy did not bet an outright on just a finishing position market is Tommy Fleetwood, top 20 on Tommy Fleetwood. He's a guy, look, he's coming over here, making his debut, PGA Tour debut this week, but he's a guy, and I know you weren't on the pod last week where I was talking about this with Shane Lowry, where like he's played a ton through the fall, through the winter on the DP World Tour, has played very well over there. T21 Dubai Desert Classic already this year. T16 going back to November. T6 third, T3, T12. A lot of great finishes on the DP World Tour. Plus going back to what we saw early at the end of last year, you're talking to a guy, he has not finished. If you go back to the Olympics, he hasn't finished worse than T22 in any tournament that he's teed it up in. So this is another guy with an example. Okay, Adam Scott, the one guy I think I did bet this week that does have some Pebble Beach experience. It's just been light in recent years, right? Tommy Fleetwood's one of these guys. He doesn't have much experience here. I'm just going to go with how his game's been recently. As you've cautioned the podcast listeners many times before, and usually while talking to me directly, not worth an outright bet, but I think a top 20 bet with Fleetwood makes a lot of sense here.
I have a top 10 on him.
Okay.
He's my last placement market. Yeah, he's my last placement market guy this week. Same deal. I don't have a ton of confidence in him getting the deal done. He's proven to us that he can't really get the deal done when it's been given into him. But, I'll play on this dude playing some really solid golf for 4 rounds and get me a top 10. If you look and like at less than driver courses over the last 75 rounds, because I went out with who's good at this over like the last several years, right? Mm-hmm. He's 5th overall in this field in tee to green, like in these kind of less than driver courses. And look, if you can get me tee to green at the 5th best rate, then I'm feeling pretty good about that. Like, yeah, I know you got to do some other stuff outside of that, but the putter in general and things like that, I understand all that, but just get on the green, and I'm feeling pretty good. If you suck at putting that week, then you suck at putting that week. It is what it is, Mm-hmm. So, top 10 on Fleetwood, and like you said, it's not a guy until he proves it to me, Riley. He's not a guy I feel confident with an outright, but he seems to always put together 4 pretty solid rounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm in on him this week. I like him a lot in those top 20, top 10 plays. I think Fleetwood and Adam Scott make a lot of sense. I'll bring up one guy real quick because the only other, I bet 2 other top 10s, but they're just to cover a couple outrights that I bet on the guys as well. One other guy that did not make the cut for me, I'm wondering if he did for you though, because he did kind of, when Matt and I talk about we're using multiple sites, he was kind of the guy that kept popping on multiple sites. I think though he's played so little that we're drawing data from too far back for me to feel comfortable with, but that would be one Russell Henley, who look, he's a very good, very good approach player. He is a guy that I think would make a lot of sense at this course, and really rated out kind of in that, top 10, back end of top 10 range for me, Matt. Like, almost everything that I ran. Yeah, he's not the big time par 5 scorer, but driving extremely accurate off the tee. Not terrible around the green stats. When we talk about those wedge proximity buckets we're looking at, I mean, he is one of the best in the field. So I got very close in 6th in short course, strokes in short courses. I'm looking over at Rick Rungood right now.
Yeah.
But he was a guy I got really close with. I don't know if he was one you considered at all. I think my final decision was I'm going to leave him off the card because I think we're pulling data from too far back with him because he hasn't played all that much. But any consideration with him for you?
Yeah, I I looked into him a little bit, but the thing was, it kind of was a deal where it felt like his price was appropriate to where it was for everything. He's down at like 19th on one of mine, 21st on another. So
he was a little higher for me. Okay.
Yeah. So he didn't like super pop for me. And so, given where his odds were, I was like, I don't know. But I mean, here's the deal. He is kind of like the prototypical guy you'd want for a course like this. Right. I mean, like he's a dude, maybe if you're playing like DFS, it would be a good guy to get some exposure to and whatnot, because if everything's popping for him, this is the type of course where he can really do some
Should
damage.
Make sense, right? He's not the longest guy off the tee. Fine, that doesn't matter as much this week. He's extremely accurate. We talk about those proximity buckets. He's one of the best in the field if you're just looking at stuff like that. So kind of like you said with Fleetwood, if you're able to keep it at the fairway and then hit the green from the fairway, I'm feeling pretty confident what you're going to be able to do.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So I ended up with 5 outrights. Didn't think I was going to end up with 5 outrights, but it was just, again, where guys were popping for me and ended up not necessarily like matching what I thought the odds should be to them. I actually did play 2 shorties and then 3 kind of longer guys. The 2 shorties for me, Justin Thomas and Hideki, both of them.
I feel like I could have guessed this.
Yeah, I mean, both of them just ridiculously high. I mean, the one model I ran, like the super short term model, like Justin Thomas was actually number 1 in that one, in the super short term one. And so I get it. 14-1 is not sexy. It's, but I think JT's kind of like figured some stuff out here. I can't help but get drawn into the fact that, when his irons are on and he's not having blow up holes and stuff like that, like that's when he can really do some damage. And he's looked really good here early on in this season. Really, so I'm going to try to ride whatever he is fixed mentally right now until it goes off the tracks, and then I'll bail on it. But like, it seems like for at least now he's figured it out. And so not one that I love to play at that short of an odds, but I do have Justin Thomas in there. And then Hideki, again, it's just like, oh, you mean iron play and whatever? And like, yeah, I mean, Hideki, like it's like second shot golf course, Hideki, right? I mean, like who stiffs the irons better than Hideki whenever they're on, right? It's nobody. So, given as much credence to approach as I did and all that, then yeah, I mean, those guys were just, they had to be bet for me.
So before I even looked at anything stat wise and just pulled up the odds board, I thought to myself, the name that jumped off immediately was Hideki Matsuyama. And I'm like, I don't really get how this guy's this much longer. I mean, look, they're all kind of bunched at the top, right? Once you get past Scheffler, everybody's kind of bunched relatively, right? But I don't really know that I'd definitely be putting him longer than a couple of these other guys, like a Cantlay, barely shorter than a Sung Jae. I mean, I think Ludwig Oberg's going to win like 3 times this year, so like I want to say he should be like the same price as him, but maybe he shouldn't. I understand from a sportsbook perspective, keeping Ludwig shorter. But man, I was like, I can get mid-20s or low mid-20s on Hideki Matsuyama, a guy who, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 finishes this year, T32, T16, and a win. And then what kind of golfer are we looking for this week? Exactly what you said, Matt. Like, okay, we got wider fairways here. I don't have to worry as much about Hideki spraying it a little bit. He hits it into the rough fine. The rough is cut down for the Joes that these guys are going to be playing with in the Pro-Am. And I need someone who's great with wedges and great around the green. Like, it's Hideki Matsuyama. It just screams at you. He's just not a guy who's played here a ton in the past. So yeah, it's not a lot of great tournament history to pull from, but he was the first guy I gravitated to. And look, Hideki's becoming a problem for me. I definitely bet him too many times last year. I only bet him when he didn't win last year, and that becomes frustrating. Same thing this year. I wasn't on him when he won the one he won this year. So we'll see what me and Hideki's betting relationship is like going forward. But I am back on him. I played an outright, and I played a top 10 on him this week. He was the guy that jumped off the board as soon as I pulled up the odds board this week. So I am absolutely in lockstep with you on Hideki.
Is he the shortest guy you played?
He is not. He is not. I was only laughing because you brought up JT and Hideki because I didn't play JT, Matt. Who did I play instead of JT?
You played Morikawa.
I played Morikawa, of course I did. This is right. I'm like, I feel like I could have guessed this about you. You could have guessed this about me. Don't get me wrong. I mean, JT was definitely in consideration. I completely understand why you're going that way. But yeah, Morikawa, look, this is probably going to be pretty regular for me this year. I mean, he's second in his only start. Yes, was a withdrawal before the Farmers. But he was sick then, right? I'm going to guess that in 10 days he's feeling a little bit better unless he's really battling with something absolutely terrible. And again, the type of profile that we're looking at here, right? It's okay. I need someone who's going to be good with their irons and their wedges, and that's Collin Morikawa. He's one of the best on tour with them. So yeah, that's where I went. Morikawa, played the outright price on him. I got a 15-1. I know it's more like mainly 14s. You can find out there. I would bet that at 14-1 though. And then I played a top 10 on him as well, just to kind of cover that. I mean, look, Collin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele, top 10 bets were like basically saved my entire golf betting year last year. So that is one you're going to probably see very often at the beginning of the season for me is Morikawa, Xander Schauffele, whenever he gets back, right back in the top 10 spot. So outright Morikawa and then a top 10 on him. And honestly, that's my whole card. I did play a matchup as well. Only one matchup for me so far. I know obviously everybody listening to us does not live in the state of Nevada, but I will bring up to Matt right now. Stations. Tip of the cap to them because I saw more matchups posted at Stations this week than I think I've ever seen at any sports book ever. Like ever in any golf tournament. So shout out to those guys. That was very impressive. Played a Morikawa over McIlroy matchup. Plus 105 on Morikawa. Obviously not a huge price there. This just isn't, and we could talk about some of these other guys at the top of the board. This just isn't the perfect course for a Rory McIlroy, right? And another guy doesn't have a ton of experience here over the past. I'm willing to go to battle with Collin Morikawa to finish out better than him. So that's one tournament matchup that I did bet.
Yeah, I flirted with Justin Thomas over Patrick Cantlay. I haven't done it yet. I might still do it. Depends on where the price ends up going on that one. But I have him just exponentially better than Cantlay, according to all the numbers and all that. And like, it seems to me like that's something I need to get in on. 3 other outrights for me, 2 in the middle range, 1 in the long range. A real quick reminder, guys, if you're just joining us or just found us, for these shorter outrights, like, I'm giving you the outright price, but just understand there's always some sort of like, I'm not getting my heart broken attached to it. So if like Justin Thomas, I have a top 5 as well on Justin Thomas, like on Hideki, I have a top 5 on Hideki. So it's basically like, just always assume it's a little bit less than a unit, and some of that is gone over into, because we don't get each ways here. Like, I know some of you guys live in markets out there. If you're in a Bet Rivers market, if you're in a Bet 365 market, you can actually bet each ways, but we don't get that in Nevada. So like, I have to do my own each way. I have to cover my own ass like in this. So just again, moving forward, that's kind of how this all
Which
will work out.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it is one thing that me and you bet a little bit differently. I kind of went through my whole card. I'll usually just cover with top 10s, and then I'm probably betting those a little heavier than what you're betting with the top 5s. If you know what each way betting is, yes, Matt is pretty much just splitting that up directly to factor in a top 5 helping you cover there, right? I mean that's what you're doing. I'm doing a little bit differently, kind of going out to 10 spots. I'm not going to make as much if the guy, comes in to 4th place, right, as Matt's going to make, but I'm a little bit more comfortable with backing it out to the top 10.
The 2 guys in the mid-range, Bob McIntyre, Shane Lowry for me. Lowry just destroyed I couldn't believe how high he finished in all these models. I mean, like, it was something else. But then you go in and you start to realize, like, I mean, what were the stuff that I was looking at, right? Approach. Yeah. He just is like a monster on approach, and we're not necessarily worried too much about any of the other stuff. If this is a second shot golf course, hopefully the putts will be so close. I mean, he lost a ton at the Farmers, but he gained in Abu Dhabi 2 tournaments ago. So it's just kind of like one of those deals where, like his putter's going to come and go. I'm all right with that when you're betting an outright guy at 65, 66 to 1, something like that. I mean, I'm just hoping I'm on him one of the days that the putters a go instead of one of the days that the putters not there. So, but again, fantastic, ridiculously fantastic approach. numbers, has not had a negative approach tournament since June of 2024 for Shane Lowry. So this seems like the type of tournament here too, where you're going at a guy that isn't necessarily known for bombing it off the tee, doesn't have to here, is just going to go out there and do what he does. So I think Shane Lowry was a pretty great play here for this tournament in particular.
We didn't talk last week on the pod. I loved Lowry last week. He was making his PGA Tour debut, but this is another guy like we talked about with Fleetwood. Just look at what he did throughout the entire fall over on the DP World Tour. Just incredible play out of him. You might be talking me into. I want to talk Scheffler eventually, but I ended up with so little outrights because I actually was first thinking I was going to be on Scheffler and then kind of had to retract, back away and kind of reapproach things. So I'm waiting for Matt to talk me into one or two. It's like you're talking about Shane Lowry at that long of a number, I might be back in on because he didn't pop as much for me this week, Matt, but last week I had the same reaction you did. I was like, I know it's his first event back over on the PGA Tour, but where he's showing up on everything that I'm running based compared to what we're getting odds-wise is just not matching at all. So I might play with you as well. I think last week, look, he missed the cut last week. I think it's tough to draw too much away from that tournament last week.
That course was playing hard. That course was playing hard.
With what the wind was doing to those guys, and sporadic too, right? It's a little different if it's consistent throughout 4 rounds of golf, but it wasn't. And you just don't know what guys got affected more than others, and who was sick or not, right? A bunch of these guys were sick last week.
And he's not a bomber, and that's a course, the longest course on tour. And it's just, there's a lot of stuff that I think shades back to Lowry this week as opposed to last week. I mean, if you look again in kind of the short-term model, last 20 rounds, this is a guy who's first overall in the field in approach. He is second overall in approach over the last, when I went down to 20, I just added in a bit of last 36 just to see, as a blended part of the model. He's second overall last 36. He's inside the top 12 in good drive percentage and total driving and all of that for him. So Lowry, just that number was way too long comparatively where he showed up in the model. Kind of the same deal with Bob McIntyre. Bob McIntyre is as high in one of mine, Kelley, as 9th overall for Bob McIntyre. And yet another dude that if we're just kind of looking for an all-around, well-rounded game where you don't have to bomb it off the tee and you don't have to really worry so much if you do spray it just a tad, then Bob McIntyre's kind of your guy. And so that's, again, he was as high as 9th in one of mine, and that's with him being 67th out of 80 in good drive percentage, 66th out of 80 in total driving, and he still finished 9th in the model to let you know how high that he was in some of the other categories. So Bob McIntyre for me, and then I rounded out the card with Nico Echevarria. Nico inside the top 10 in every single version of every model that I ran. Yeah.
Okay, I only say it like that because he was, I think, 5th in one that I ran, but then mid-20s or 30s or something in a couple of the others that I ran.
Yeah. And again, it just goes back to when we're prioritizing some of the stuff that we're prioritizing, right? This is a dude that makes a lot of birdies. This is a guy that avoids bogeys. This is a guy that goes out there and puts it in the fairway a lot of times, kind of 15th in good drive percentage, all that. Nothing really jumps off the page to you about Nico, but it seems like everything just kind of blends and meshes together. He's inside, again, the kind of the top 25 in just about every single category. Well, you're talking about a dude that's as long as 150 to 1 out there. So if you're getting a guy whose stats show up where his show up, but you're getting him at 150 to 1, then, that was where I kind of had to pull the trigger here. As far as everybody else, we kind of talked about everybody else that really was in my top 10, Kelley, except for Sepp Straka, who was in the top 10 in one of mine. So didn't consider Sepp, probably should. And then who was the other one that I was going to say that was right outside of the top 10? Harry Hall.
Yeah. I don't know if me and you have ever talked a tournament where seemingly we are aligned as much as this.
Yeah.
Harry Hall was popping in mine. Like I said, Nico was very high in one of mine. Robert McIntyre, like you said, I considered very heavily as well because he was kind of in that. I think it was like you for who did I bring up earlier? Henley. Like Bobby Mack for me was a little further down than what you had, but he was someone I still looked at.
Yeah, it's so again for DFS pools and stuff like that, I can give you some other guys that were at least inside the kind of top 15 who, I didn't really consider for outrights, or even placement market stuff, but like for a DFS lineup, like I said, Harry Hall's one.
Yeah.
Ben Griffin kind of popped in one of the models. Nick Taylor.
There's a guy who has incredible course history.
Yeah. Nick Taylor popped in one of mine.
And all he does is
I
win.
didn't put in.
So just bet it outright.
I didn't put in like any, as far as course history. So he just was getting there even without the course history. And then in kind of one of the shorter term models, let me see. I talked about Sepp. JT Poston was inside the top 15, and Ricky Fowler actually was inside was inside the top 15 in one of them. So
okay, that's finally one I'm surprised to hear.
Yeah, guys that I don't have bets on them, but if you're playing DFS or whatever, like this is kind of how you might want to round out your lineups with some of these cheap guys that did make it pretty high up in my model. What are you doing for one and done this week?
I don't know. I'm getting my Shane Lowry bet in right now, okay? That is I'm joining you on Lowry. I was so high on him last week. Felt like such a jackass on this podcast talking him up so much. I could not believe what the number was on him last week. Yeah. And shout out to Stations again, 66-1 on him. That is by far the longest number that I'm seeing. Holy cow. Okay, that bet's in. One and done. Let's see. I don't know. I think this is always a tricky time of year and a tricky course.
It's an elevated event, so you need to hit here. Like you got to get someone in the top 3 at least if you want to really make a run at something. So it's like you're going to use a big name. It's just what big name are you going to use? Like that's basically what it comes down to. Like who are you going to?
Maybe I should just,
for lack of a better term, burn. You know what I'm saying?
I think Tommy Fleetwood is the guy I'm going to burn.
Okay.
I think I hadn't really thought about it a ton till right now, but I think Tommy Fleetwood is who I'm going to use actually, because you know what? He's a guy at least I've got that's put more numbers up in over the past 3-4 months than most of these guys, so you can feel a little bit more confident with that. And if none of my guys I'm really leaning on for heavy course history here, anyways, then I'll go with that. I don't think I'm ready to use Colin Morikawa yet. I'll probably be saving him for a major. This might be a good spot. I mean, like, how much are we baking in, Matt? Like, is the market baking in just because he won like recently? He's not going to win again.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I know it's so dumb. Like, so here's
who you think.
Here's where I think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Justin Thomas while he's playing good right now, because I don't know
how long that could last.
How long it's going to last, right? And so if I can get a guy on a course where I think he can play well anyway, and he certainly is, air quote, one of the big boys, he's not going to, if he finds himself in a dogfight on a Sunday, he's not going to, be scared of any of those guys or whatever. I think I got to take advantage while he's still playing good. That's kind of where I'm leaning right now on the one and done side of things, because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm going to hold him and whatever, and then he falls apart again. At least while he's got it together.
Yeah, I think that's
at least while he's got it together right now. Then I kind of want to use him while I've got him together.
It's probably good. It's probably a good same argument for Hideki though too.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be looking at Hideki. I might play Hideki. It's going to be Hideki or Fleetwood for me.
Yeah.
I do want to talk to you about Scheffler, because I don't know that there is a. When I first pulled up the odds board and then I looked at it again today, I couldn't believe what Matsuyama's price was. And look, when you're seeing a 5 these days next to Scotty Scheffler, it makes it gives you a double take for sure. I mean, we know everything what's happened. He's coming off an injury. Look, he cut his damn hand open, and especially if we're talking at a course where it's going to be a lot of short game and putting. Yeah, hands seem important in golf, period, but especially this week. I went in at first, Matt. My approach was I don't care. Scotty Scheffler. I don't really. factor in the injury stuff too much. I think if the dude's good enough to play, he's not showing up until he's good enough to play. And if Scotty feels like he's good enough to play, then he's good enough to go out there and beat 79 other guys on a golf course. And when you're getting 5-1, look, we often talk about full field events where, okay, you know, almost half the names you could usually toss out anyways of not having a chance. But it's still 80. It's only 80 guys, and you're getting 5-1 on him or around that number out there in the market. I've seen over 5-1 at places. I'm not going to blame a single human being that decides to play Scheffler this week, because this could very easily be the longest number you see him at all year long. And I had a lot of trouble getting away from it. I thought I was going to bet him outright, and that was basically going to be my only outright. These other guys I'd play in finishing position markets. But then I started thinking about a couple things. This is a tournament where guys are going to go lower. It's going to turn into a bit more of a putting contest, which I'm not. We often talk crap about Scotty Scheffler's putting game. I'm not trying to say that, but it lends to higher variance, right? So if a guy gets hotter with a putter that usually isn't great with his putter this week, it could just be enough to surpass where Scheffler's at. And I think that Scheffler's awesome everywhere. I think ideally you want to use him at some tournaments that require a little bit more off the tee than what this is going to require out of him. And then wind, right? I know it looks calm, and that's why I was confident to bet him at first, because it looked calm and it was going to be fine. But like I said with putting, if it gets windy out there and it hits your guys at the wrong time, it could throw everything off. So I ended up talking myself out of it. I guess we'll find out if I regret it or not. But did you consider him at all? How much time did you spend on him, or did you consider fading him? Because I feel like I know some guys that are fading him this week.
Not fading him, but also not playing him, mainly because of what you said. So if the weather conditions were worse in this, then Scotty Scheffler becomes way more appealing to me, because he's just a better golfer than all these guys, and he's going to figure out how to make it happen. Knowing that it looks like it's going to be pretty prime scoring conditions, he can play 4 great rounds and still get beat by any of these dudes, because all of these guys are awesome, you know? Yeah. And so
like Nick Taylor, who gained 7 strokes putting. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so if the weather forecast had been worse, then I would have been much more interested in Scheffler. But since it looks pretty benign, any of the guys we just mentioned can literally go out there and beat him. And he wouldn't even have to play bad. He could play 4 really great rounds of golf and still lose. So
yeah. And I'll tell you, the next thought I had was, hey, I'll play a top 5 on him at -110. We bet -110s every single day when we're betting sports. So, you can play -110 on a top 5. But if we know all these guys are going to go low, it's like how you talked about near the beginning of the pod. You've got 4 rounds. There's no cut. These guys can easily work their way into these top 10, top 5 ranges when they didn't look like they had any shot around before. I don't think I want to mess around with that either. So I am skipping Scheffler. I'll tell you, though, I tore myself up about it for about an hour and a half today. Like, it was I had one game plan where I was forming a card completely around Scheffler as like my solo outright. And then I kind of started to sour on him and pivoted away. So just wanted to bring it up because that's really where my thoughts were at with this tournament.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a good discussion to have. Like I said, I would probably be on him if the weather looked worse, but with it being the way that it is, I think any of these guys can kind of go out and get one round where they go nuclear and like surpass him, So that's kind of my only deal with that one. Guys, again, as always, this is completely free, so please go in, hit that subscribe button. If you're over on the audio side of things, we'll say the whole subscribe, rate, review thing. And if you're over on the video side of things, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, let us know in the comment section how you are going to be playing this one. Again, all of our final bets will be up over at VSiN.com/picks, so go in. And if you're not already a VSiN Pro subscriber, we're running a $59 off for an annual subscription special right now. So take advantage of that. You can get not only me and Kelley's thoughts on all this, but every single person on the network that comes on and talks golf this week will have their selections up there on VSiN.com as well. For Kelley, I am Matt. Good luck on all your AT&T bets.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.